Hello, everybody. Welcome to the World of Brickfilms podcast. I am your host, William of AW Studios. Joining me, as always, is my good friend and co-host, Sean Willis of City Penta.
Hello again.
And our special guest is Maxime Marion.
Hi guys, how are you?
I hope that's how you pronounce your name.
The name is okay, Maxime Marion, in pure French fashion.
Nice. So very recently you made the latest film in the Henry and Edmund series, Four Studs. Henry and Edmund, yeah.
Henri et Edmond, if you want to pronounce it really with a real French accent.
And it was brilliant. As always, with I think something that we often say with the Henri and Edmund's series is that it's some of the most it's like a masterclass of great sort of animation, storytelling, cinematography, editing, sound, pretty much on every element. It's so professionally made. And so actually we've actually got a milestone actually coming up that I think it's in December. It's the 10th anniversary of copyright.
Exactly. Yeah, it's getting pretty old now.
I don't know if you've heard this, but sometimes in chat rooms and whatever, people might say, "Oh, what's the best brick film ever made?" And obviously, there's no consensus, but the first one that's usually brought up is copyright.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's always surprising because that was only my second animated short film, copyright, or droit d'auteur in French, and it was a great experience. But I didn't expect it to be anything else than second film, trying to top what was done in the first short film. But I'm very happy that after almost 10 years now, more than 10 years for me, because the movie was first released in a Lego exhibition back in June 2011. We had a Lego exhibition called Fanabric in France, and it's just almost next to my house. It's like at 10 kilometers from where I live, and yeah, it's I wanted Four Studs, the fourth installment of the Adventures of Henri Edmond, to be some kind of an anniversary film for the anniversary of copyright back in the days.
I didn't know it was released in June 1st.
Yeah, actually, it was released not on the internet, so yeah. For many people, and even for me, the definitive anniversary is on December, but the movie was first released in June, and it actually was a little bit shorter. There was a sequence from the screenplay I didn't have time to complete for the exhibition, so we had to get rid of it. It's the asylum sequence when you see the bad guy Vince in his room. And yeah, this sequence was removed, and I think Quentin Billard, the composer, he changed one of the music of the film at some point. I think it's when Henri is about to get caught by the bad guys, and Edmond just comes to save his life, and Quentin just reworked his music for that scene because it was okay, but not as great as what it finally did. So yeah, the final version, the definitive one, was released in December.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the music in the Henri and Edmund films is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's truly professional quality.
Quentin would be very happy to hear you, because he's working like crazy on those films, and yeah, I'm a fan of film music. And I always try to put some attention on the soundtrack of the films I'm making, and I think Quentin is just a wonderful composer. And I don't know if you know, guys, but the soundtrack for the four films was released a few weeks ago, and it's available on Bandcamp. So I'm just advertising it now.
That's cool. Yeah, we should get the link. But yeah, I've always admired how in the films there's like memorable themes. You know, like Plastic Love has a unique theme in the opening credits. Excellent music.
Yeah, I will tell Quentin. He will be very happy because Quentin is, that kind of artist who is very happy to work on projects, and it's sometimes a bit there are confrontations because we are trying to give the best to the audience, but also because we want to do some good work, and Quentin is always doubting a lot, and so I'm always doubting a lot while producing, while creating, and I think if Quentin hears what you say, he will be very, very happy.
I hope so. Yeah, truly deserves a lot of praise.
Thank you very much.
Something that I've felt like is it kind of feels really weird to sort of say something as like higher quality as copyright is turning 10. Because we often, like, when on the podcast, we often talk about, like, brick films from the past. If you say, like, 10 years ago, we kind of, you have this kind of picture in your head of, like, this very kind of, like, old-looking brick film, with, like, low, like, resolution and, I don't know, like, I guess you just don't really think of anything quite like copyright. And it just feels like everything in terms of, like, what is, the production values and everything else on top of that.
The lighting and the cinematography.
Yeah, like it feels like up to quality with something from now, and I think it's definitely it's hard to kind of think of it as being 10 years old.
Yeah, but well, I must say that from my point of view, having made a film, when I watch it now, I'm always a bit frustrated because it doesn't look as good as it could have been, or maybe it's not as good as what we could maybe do now. But for example, there's that sequence when they are at the firehouse, and when all the firemen are gathered together with Edmond and Henri, and the light is so bad, it's very, very bad. Even I was already ashamed of that sequence back in the days, and it's even worse today. But I have to accept that, okay, I've learned new things in between now and 10 years ago. And I think there are films now that are absolutely incredibly great visually. And sometimes I don't even understand how some director, I remember having worked with, what's his name? Oh, Dylan Woodley, exactly. And when I see what he's doing, is visuals and his tempo, the editing and everything is just, for me, it's so incredibly good. And watching short films from Zach Macias, for example, it's so, I don't even understand, it's so beyond the way I'm doing films, and I'm just watching those films. Sometimes I feel very, very bad because it's like, how do they do that? It's incredible. But there's one thing, if there's one thing I'm very proud of, I have to say it, because 10 years ago it was very different, is the animation from copyright. It might be absolutely flawed and everything, but back in the days I worked on that project and I had no animation software, that I had no Dragon Frame or anything. So today I'd say it's the animation, I consider it so you can watch the short film, but it's far from what is now on YouTube. But I just remember, I don't even understand back in the days, how could I work without animation software? Spending so much time just, okay, so this sentence is 12 frames long, so I have to raise that character arm for 5 frames and then go for... it was absolutely crazy. And I definitely think today I would refuse to produce a short film that way.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. Yeah, I worked the same way for over 10 years without software and just counting the frames I'd need. And yeah, but then now after finally getting Dragon Frame, I wouldn't even bother to start a project if I couldn't use Dragon Frame.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know how where I found that patience, probably that absolutely I was loving what I was doing, so it helped complete the project. But definitely I would refuse to do such a thing now, because it's so much work. And but maybe one day I'll try to do another Henri and Edmond short film, but maybe not that short, maybe a little bit longer. I'd like to experiment another film with the length of copyright, or maybe a little bit more. But I have to take some time to prepare everything and have the best screenplay possible, because in order to create a great project, you have to be convinced that it's a great project. Because you don't spend 10 months, one year, or maybe even more on a project if you're not convinced by the message and by the ideas that are in that project.
Absolutely. I mean, I was going to say, like, copyright, I think, will always hold up because the screenplay is so strong, and the character development is strong, and the humor and everything.
I think that's the core of the project, the screenplay, and of course from the screenplay there are the characters and some good dialogues, but that's a point you have not to miss. It's very important to have a good screenplay. That's the core of the project.
I mean, I was going to say, like, you were saying that you weren't happy with the lighting in the firehouse sequence, but, like, in my mind, the firehouse sequence is one of the best parts of the film, because the axis trick when he's hiding behind the other characters is such a memorable sequence, a funny scenario.
Happily, the axis trick was funny enough in order to make people forgive me for the very bad lights.
Yeah, but of course, we always think these things about our own films. There's always something that we're saying, oh, I'm so unhappy with this part, and everyone else is like, oh, I didn't even notice what you're talking about.
For sure. I think to sort of like follow on what Panda was saying earlier about like how like the screenplay and like the character development in it is like, it's kind of like still kind of miles above so many Brick films today, I think. And like, I really love the sequence, the sunset sequence. I find like it's like a really kind of like iconic moment. I think as well. Where they just kind of like, they're just sort of talking, and you're just getting to know more about those characters, and I think it's something that you kind of take for granted. But like, most Brick films aren't like half an hour long, and you don't really get a chance to have like those sort of quiet moments, with characters, and I think that's why one of the as well as just being like a really well written scene, I think it's one of the reasons why it really stands out, just being able to do that kind of thing, play around, when you play around with like a longer kind of like runtime.
Yeah, you have to make longer projects in order to have that kind of sequence, and that's why maybe the audience for the latest installments of Henri and Edmond were a bit frustrated, because the films being shorter, they don't allow me to go that far into character development. So it's even frustrating for me. But I think if you have a long enough story, a long enough film, you can take some time to. I remember with copyright, it was very important, their friendship. I wanted to show their friendship, because that's something that didn't appear in the first movie, and with the new neighbor. And I thought, okay, now people, they know a little bit about the characters, but I know them, I know who they are, I have many ideas for them, but the audience, they have no idea who they are and what that friendship is about. So copyright was the best opportunity to show all those details that were already part of the characters for me, but nobody knew about that. So that was the film to show all those details. And now maybe I spend a little bit less time on those details because the films are shorter, but also because people know them already. But I absolutely love to build another brick film with them and show things that people haven't seen yet about them, to try to push them to their limits and see, maybe, to reverse what we've been used to see with those characters. But when they are confronted to to their limits. Maybe things are different and they are friends, but sometimes Henri is the, not the weak one, but is the shy character, when Edmond is more exuberant and a bit crazy. So sometimes showing that they are not only that, they can be sometimes the opposite. Or I like to go back to another project with them.
Yeah, and I think that element of the film really worked well. I mean, of course, yeah, it helps that it's in a half-hour film, but we often bring up copyright as a good example of accomplishing something like that successfully in a brick film. Because, like, sometimes we see people, like, sort of going for a, more serious tone or something, and, I don't know, it very rarely works out, at least in my opinion anyway. But we always mention copyright as one where it does work, where there's, a more sort of meaningful conversation between the characters. And to me, in my mind, it seems to work because, the whole film has been setting up it starts off with like a more whimsical, humorous tone, but you get invested in the characters over time, as the film goes along. So then once they're talking about something a bit more deep, it doesn't feel ridiculous by being in Lego, because you're so invested by that point. It reminds me of like Wallace and Gromit or something.
Oh yeah, actually, that's something that I've always kind of felt with Henry, Henri and Edmond, is that like it feels like the brick film equivalent of like Wallace and Gromit, as a series. But something that I was thinking then as well, like I think it's not only like great kind of like writing and all that kind of stuff, but also I think the pacing and like where like certain scenes are kind of placed, I think is very carefully considered. You can really tell that. I think things like you having those sequences like the fire, the firemen and that kind of stuff, and showing the kind of like eccentricities of the characters and their kind of like their creativity and how they kind of like get sort of beyond like certain things and stuff like that and sort of solve problems. And I think that kind of like it makes you like invested in the characters and really like them before you actually kind of like see that kind of more like tender moment. And I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, I think there's no recipe to make great characters and everything. I'm convinced that brick films and Lego based short films are not made to be serious films. You have to accept that they are toys and they have very colorful identities and very the characters are always very smiley, and you can try to do serious films or maybe horror films but it doesn't actually work. You have to accept that there's something smiley and funny about it and try to build on that in order to reach something maybe more serious. Maybe the idea about copyright was to say, okay, the characters are Lego figures, but they have something very human. There's a human side to them, and having a longer brick film allows us to show this human side and as I mentioned, the friendship and everything. But they are not, sometimes when you're writing for example a bad guy character, he has to be the bad guy so that the heroes can shine and everything. But when you have great characters, you can actually make them really exist on screen, not just being okay. So it's that character that allows each information to be given to the audience. No. We are actually trying to build real characters through funny sequences, but at the same time we give informations about them. And I think you have to carefully play in between the comedy and something more serious. But you in my opinion, you can't just go into a very serious brick film thinking that the audience will watch it like a regular film with real actors. It doesn't work, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think brick filmers maybe are able to sort of just pretend like it's a real film. But
yeah, because they are used to it.
Yeah, exactly.
We are used to watch Lego films and to create Lego films, but I mean, if you want to catch the attention of all the viewers, you have to accept that Lego is always considered a bit childish, a bit juvenile.
Yeah, I definitely I agree with what you're saying, that yeah, you work with the medium, you build on top of it. Like, yeah, it's better to try and work with it rather than try and pretend like it's not there, or hope people ignore it.
But I have to tell you guys, I'm very happy that, when 10 years ago making that short film, I did not expect that 10 years later I'll be still talking about it and explaining things. So thank you so much, because it's absolutely great, especially that now on YouTube, in my opinion, has changed a lot. I mean, especially when you're doing stop motion, you can't release a new short film every 4 days. It takes time, and basically today YouTube just kills you if you're not making something new every week. So you don't exist, and it's been very difficult recently. Even for me, doing new short films, I'm very happy, because I like doing those short films. Most of them are made with no money, so I'm not living thanks to those films. It's just all about passion. And now I think copyright is something like 400,000, or I don't remember, maybe 500,000 views now, 10 years later. But my latest films, they if I'm 5,000 views, I'm very, very happy. But there's something that changed. It's not the same anymore, and just saying that maybe it's still it's still getting some interest. It makes me very, very happy. So thank you, guys.
I mean, I think it's really sort of like earned. I think it's just like such an amazing film, even today. Like
absolutely, and certainly I agree. It's much harder to come across the classics on YouTube nowadays. I feel like years ago you'd come across all the classics in the recommended videos, but not so much anymore. So I kind of feel a bit of an obligation to try to make sure that people still know the classics. Like, I'm always trying to tell people about things at any opportunity. And I'm sure I'll still be telling people to watch Copyright 10 years from now. But I agree that just related to what you're saying, I'm happy to get 5,000 views on a project I really care about. That means a lot more to me than seeing some ancient video I made having 500,000. But if I think that it's kind of a bad video, that doesn't really mean much to me. I'd rather have a couple thousand on something that that I really, really care about making now.
Good comments and nice feedback is always what's. I'm not working for feedbacks, because I love what I'm doing. I mean, I love making those films.
Yeah.
But of course, those feedbacks, when they are positive and that you can actually discuss the projects, even if people don't like it that much, it's always good to have this kind of chat and talks through messages and everything with people you don't know. Sometimes it's very, I don't know, when you put a movie or a short film, brick film, anything on YouTube, you're sharing a little bit of what you are. And it's always great to see that some people are invested in it, or maybe they feel close to the project. So it gives a sense to showing it on the internet or through YouTube or anything else, because actually you see that people are. I'm so happy to see that people are emotionally invested in this project.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can remember when The New Neighbor came out in 2008, and of course that made a big splash in the community at the time. So
really,
I feel really invested, to see, just hearing that there's a new film coming out in 2021, and it's been a part of my life since 2008. So I'm thinking, man, this is exciting to me.
Four studs. was a bit of a... It was a strange project because I had been writing this big adventure. I don't know if I will actually direct it, but I have this big screenplay for Henri and Edmond. And for me, it was like, okay, it's going to be the fourth adventure for them. And in the end, during the first French lockdown, because of COVID here, I wanted to do something. You know, I had some time spent at home, not being allowed to go outside. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, I don't have that much sets here, because usually I'm working with friends who are building, I'm sending them my ideas of how the set should look like, and they help me build them. So I don't have that much Lego bricks at home. So based on what I had at home, I started thinking, okay, what can I tell? Like a small story, maybe it could be funny to do something. So this project replaced the previous one. Well, probably the next one, if there's no other lockdown in France and that I have another idea. But the big project was pushed for later. And I wanted to do that project, and for me it's like a small project just for fun. But working on it, I had some new ideas. I was writing new stuff while animating it, so the project was a little bit longer than expected. And when lockdown was finished for a very long time. I mean, more than a year later, I was able to complete that project, and I was pretty happy with it, because I consider it like a small project, but done for fun, and that I actually loved creating. And many people were like, "Oh, it's very short. Oh, I expected for much." And I went, "Yeah, I know that there should be another big, great adventure, but right now, I just wanted to do that small project. Well, small, I spent 1 year on it, but if I put all the time I worked on side by side, it must be like 3 or 4 months of work. But for me, it's like a smaller stop motion project. And I was very happy, but a bit surprised that people were, of course, they expect copyright too. They want the big 40 minutes adventure.
Yeah. Well, I think people have a bit of a tendency to assume that you've been working on something since the minute the last film got released. So in their minds, they were thinking, oh, the last one came out in 2014, so yeah. He's had 7 years. Yeah. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, definitely. But I've worked on many other projects and not on this one. And yeah, you're right. And I think that's a bit of a problem for me now, because the Henri Edmond films were meant to be like The New Neighbor, like 7 to 10 minutes long each. And doing, there are many series that have, they say like 5 seasons and a movie, I think it's Community, or they always, first we do many seasons, and when the series is famous enough, we'll make a movie out of it. And copyright is the movie based on the series that don't exist. Now there's a series, but copyright, I had a lot of time to create it. I don't have that much time now. And for me, it was some kind of an exceptional project. I don't want each project to be like that. But now people think that every project should be more ambitious than the previous one, and I'm not okay with that sentence. Each project has to be what it is. You don't need to be always even bigger. So don't expect me to do always bigger and bigger projects. But of course, in the future, I'd like to do another copyright kind of brick film.
Well, I mean, maybe if you do make more short ones, you could just up front, you could say, short Henri and Edmond film coming soon.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would say though, like, I guess there is a kind of a sort of positive spin on it, in that people kind of like watching a 10-minute brick film and saying like, oh, that was short. Like, when it comes to like brick films in general, like that is not like a short brick film. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of like is a sort of, I guess, testament to like the quality of like Henri and Edmond, and like what you do in those 10 minutes,
it is very funny that we're calling a 10-minute brick film a short because, to most of us, that's basically feature length.
Yeah, exactly. And you are absolutely right. But at the same time, it's the shortest brick film, Henri and Edmond film from the last 10 years, So people, they start to expect something longer. And each movie is half the length of the previous one. So yeah, for them, Forsters is a short adventure.
Yeah. But actually, I'm interested to know, do you have anything in mind as to what influenced your writing style? Like the structure of the films is very good. So I wonder, was there anything that you were watching?
Tricky question. Very tricky question. I think, well, I started loving stop motion thanks to the Wallace and Gromit shorts. And I think these are very well written short films. And back in the days when I was doing the first three Henri Edmond adventures, I just had studied, all the writing tricks from the screenwriters. So I was using them in a way that at that moment it seemed pretty clever. Now for me it's like a basic structure of a movie, and I'm trying, and especially with Forsters, I'm trying to blur a little bit more that structure, not to use the tricks the same way as I did before, because I don't know the name in English, but there's a name in oh yeah, maybe I know the name. It's setup and payoff.
Yeah.
That that's the idea of most of the films. So the character, they meet a new character, and there's something that happens at the same time, and many different things. And by the end of the day, at the end of the film, everything just all those storylines, they are actually based on the same main story. So the first three films were all about that, and I'd like today to blur the lines a little bit, to be a little bit more subtle maybe with the way I'm writing. But I don't know, I've been watching a lot of films, and not necessarily stop motion animation, and I think it had some impact, but I can't tell you, that film inspired me for exactly this element. I remember that for copyright, for example, I was very interested in the Enemy of the State with Will Smith and Gene Hackman, when Will Smith is tracked by the NSA because he has a recording of the murder of a politician, and they are getting tracked, and Gene Hackman is that character that he knows, he's a very smart character, he knows what to do. And I wanted to make the parody of that with Edmond, who is pretty, is very confident when actually he's a bit exuberant, and at the same time he's not a hero, he's not that smart, but he thinks he is, and it's pretty funny. And there's that line in the dialogue when he asks, why did you broke that fence, or I don't remember the sentence in English, and he answers, because you downloaded a music file. And there's exactly the same sentence in Enemy of the State, when they have to escape a building, and they actually make the building explode, and he asks, why did you blow that building? He said, because you had a phone call, that's exactly the same. Yeah, watch Enemy of the State, and you'll notice many different similarities, but in a comedic way, it's very parodic of Enemy of the State, but I don't have specific reference for a good film screenplay writing.
Yeah, I suppose, like you were saying, it's just the good structure that of course it stands out in brick filming, because even if it's just kind of normal structure that is regularly used, like he's saying, setup and payoff. Obviously we see a lot of brick films that are just a fight scene or something. So it stands out when there's something that's more, has more structure to it.
That's what makes me a bit sad, because I can actually appreciate when a brick film is well done, from the good camera and good animation and everything. I'm a bit lost now when watching new brick films, because if they are just about action, there's no replay value. It's great, but it's not that interesting. So at some point I started losing tracks of what was done, because I started to be a little bit less interested in what was being done by the community, and sometimes I know I'm missing some very good films, and sometimes like 5 years later I'm discovering oh wow, that film is great, why didn't I discovered it earlier? But there's a lot of action scenes, and not necessarily in brick film, but like a character fighting another one in a video game style. It's always funny, but you don't stick to that project. You watch it once, It's great, it's fun. Maybe you will share it on social medias because it's well done. But I feel, maybe there are other films that are a little bit, in the middle of all those films that are being created on the internet now. It's sometimes a bit difficult to find the hidden gems.
Yeah, so there's a lot of short brick films, 2-3 minutes, whatever, that have really cool action or whatever. But it kind of does feel like, when you think of it as a film, most films you think of a really cool action scene or something, it's it's part of something much bigger. Obviously, it's like a fun sequence within a film, but it's the whole film that makes it good. And I do think that when you see these brick films that are an action scene, it feels like it's part of something else. It's, I think that's another thing, I guess, with copyright, is that there are some really cool, really fun sequences. I think the car chase, and with the fire engine and stuff like that. But it's not just that. It's that fun sequence within this complete film. And I think that's kind of something that's probably missing, maybe partly through kind of the runtime and length of films. But I think there's a lot of brick films that are just a sequence,
Well, of course, we have to acknowledge that, it does take months to even just make one sequence.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's very difficult to craft a full film around it, so it is impressive when people make a sequence. But as far as, there's a reason that we're still talking about stuff like copyright 10 years later, for sure.
Yeah, but, I don't want to blame those directors or animators who are doing those films, because in a way they are always interesting. They are inspiring for me, because they for the last 10 years people kept pushing the limits of what you can actually do with Lego animation, and I think it's absolutely crazy to see the evolution, because today sometimes some very young animators, some of them are 16 or less than 20, and they are animating absolutely crazy action scenes or very funny scenes with an incredible knowledge in how to with camera movements and everything, and for me it's very, very impressive, because I just don't know how to do that. But I'm not trying to do the same, because it reminds me something I've read a few days ago. You might find that you're not up to the task, for an action sequence. You're watching what others are doing, and you're just wow, I can't do that. But okay, so I accept that, and I'm trying to do what I know what I love doing, and what I know how to do.
Yeah.
But those films are, in a way, they are inspiring, because they are pushing the limits, and I think in a way it's interesting if you don't, if you're not stuck only in the animation quality or visual quality. You can use those limits being pushed to push your own limits on your own projects, and I think it's interesting, and I'm just thinking now about the latest short films Zach Macias has done, and for me, his animation is one of the most subtle and it's very smooth, and I can't reach that level because first that's not that's not the way I'm animating. He's doing animation his own way and he's just crazy, but in a way I think okay, I have to level up my game a little bit because there are guys doing such a beautiful work and yeah, definitely it is inspiring. But I'm not saying that Zach Macias is doing stupid action scenes, far from that. He's doing absolutely brilliant short films. So but I was talking about the every brick film with a great story or not, that are pushing the limits. And I think Zach Macias has been a huge inspiration for me, from the story writing and animation is one of my inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm sure I've said it before, but I do consider Zach to be one of the best all-rounders. Like, he really has every element well done in his films. And especially, he's one of the best animators around in brick filming. Very, very inspirational and influential on me.
Exactly. And I've been knowing him for a very long time. I remember when I was working on The New Neighbor, I think we had we sent each other a few emails back in the days, and we talked a little bit together. So is one of my very first contacts from the brick film community. So it's so, and I think it was 6 years ago, for the Bricks in Motion documentary with Philip Heinrich and Zach Macias was there as well. So we meet each other for real, not only through internet. So it was a great opportunity. I remember we were talking about video games. I remember he was a fan of Majora's Mask, one of the Zelda games, and everything was so great, to actually talk with him and share so many. We were loving the same things, and then he is one of those very inspiring people, and absolutely. He's an absolutely lovely guy. So I hope that one day we can make that very big brick film festival, and actually we can have people like Zach Macias part of it, so we can actually have a beer together again.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Speaking of talking with people when making the New Neighbor, something has come up on the podcast before, because we recorded an episode of the podcast with Loïc Desjardins, who is a old school French brick filmer, and his name appears in the special thanks of the New Neighbor.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because he had been active in 2003, 2004, but not so much after that, So I thought it was strange that his name was appearing in the special thanks of a brick film from 2008. And I asked him why he's in the special thanks for The New Neighbor, and he didn't remember. So I was wondering if you remember why.
Oh yeah, so the part 2 of this question now.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I don't remember exactly why, but I think as he had done brick films before, I just write him an email about, for some advice. Like, I don't remember, it's very blurry memories, but I'd say maybe I asked him about sound, maybe about how to use some sounds, or maybe it was either about sound or animation, and we talked a little bit together about that, and he gave me a few advice. Maybe have I asked him about the Lego copyright, if we are allowed to use Lego brick films. I should try to have a look at my very, very old emails. Maybe I will find that. But when you mentioned his name, I was like, wow, Loïc Desjardins. Who is he? And when you mentioned, that he was in the end credits of The New Neighbor, I was like, okay, yeah, now I remember.
Yeah.
He was one of, with Zach Macias, he was one of the very first people I just wanted to talk with those guys in order to understand what were their process, and to understand for some specific questions. It was very interesting to talk with those people.
Yeah, it probably was about sound, because he was, the sound and music guy in that era. And I worked with him on a film I released this year.
Oh, really?
I kind of brought him back after a long time. And he gave me some great advice on sound design for making my film. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was about sound, yeah.
Maybe I asked him about what kind of microphone I should buy. That kind of question. I'm not sure this is that question, but in my blurry mind, there's some more details. Maybe that was about how to record properly sound for my short film.
Yeah, because he recorded sound effects for the brickfilms.com sound library back then.
Oh, okay. So maybe I asked him if I could use some of his sounds.
Could be. But yeah, that's just one of those questions that, I care about knowing the answer to, but it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day, really.
It's interesting that you bring back some memories. I had forgotten about that.
Actually, something that kind of, I guess, related in terms of like composers and stuff, I wanted to kind of ask about, because is it last year you've actually worked with Hans Zimmer on a project?
Yeah.
Wow.
There are many layers to that story. So I've been a Hans Zimmer fan since I'm a teenager. I started listening to music thanks to film music. Maybe not necessarily Hans Zimmer, but I started listening to music through film music. That's a kind of music that I loved as an early teenager. I don't know, I was maybe 12 or 13 years old. And from that time era, I started to listen to film music, and I'm still listening to film music. So I was pretty committed with a friend on the website of Hans Zimmer back in the days. And that friend, Stefan Humes, eventually was the webmaster of that website. That was initially an unofficial website, but slowly built and evolved into the real Hans Zimmer website. So Stefan had a very started to have talks with Hans Zimmer, and Stefan is absolutely great, because he's that kind of people. We will go talk with Hans Zimmer and other composers. Like, why not? After all, there are social medias. Why can't I write an email or through a messenger? So we started talking with him, and is that kind of very funny guy, So Hans, I think in a way, appreciated him, and they started talk. And Stefan has a very unique and very well documented knowledge of how film music is built. So he always had very good questions for Hans. So in 2014, Hans Zimmer was preparing his very first concert in a long time, and I think it was in London. And he asked Stefan, okay, do you want to come in London and just be part of the rehearsal? And Stefan immediately asked him, don't you think it could be interesting that we come with a team in order to film the backstage and maybe make a video for YouTube, or don't know, but let's try to do that? And Hans answered him, yes, come with your team and we'll do something. And so I was I embarked onto this adventure, and we went to London, and I met all the team. And I remember arriving in the rehearsal room, and all the musicians, all his team was there, and musicians like Nick Glennie-Smith, who composed the music for The Rock with Hans Zimmer, and guys like Mel Wesson. Mel Wesson is a ambient music designer, and he worked on films like Hannibal and Black Hawk Down, which are some of my favorite soundtracks. And I met those guys, and I remember being very, very confident and talking with them. And at some point, Hans Zimmer, he enters the room.
Mm-hmm.
So, and suddenly you feel like, oh my God, now it's too much for me. I'm not confident at all. And you want to shake his hand, and your hand is completely cold. And hi, Hans Zimmer, my name is Maxime. The very, very strange situation. But from that day, and we made a documentary about those rehearsals. And I just remember one thing is that when we had the editing finished, like 9 months after the rehearsals, 9 months after the concert itself, we sent it to Hans Zimmer, and Hans Zimmer answered like, great. and he shared it with all his studio, all the team from his studio watched it, and it's still on the internet. It's called Hans Zimmer Revealed and Friends. 2 years later, they called us back to do new videos for his European tour. So we made shorter videos. I think they are still online on the hanszimmer.com YouTube channel. And last year, I was asked by a museum in France called the MUPAP, the Museum for Music, to produce something about film music. And I told them, oh, well, you picked the right guy, because I absolutely love Lego animation. I absolutely love film music. So asking me to do a brick film about film music is just great. And I thought maybe should I ask Hans Zimmer to do his own his own voice for his own Lego figure. And he said yes. And for like 3 or 4 months, it was very difficult to have him actually record his voice, because I just imagine him in a studio working like crazy on so many projects at the same time. And I was like, okay, I just don't want to harass him, but I'd like to know if he's actually doing it or not. And he did it. He recorded it one morning, and I remember one of his assistants just sent me the audio, and the assistant had edited the voice exactly with the same time code as my video, so that I didn't have anything else to do. Like very nice guys. They did more than I could actually hope. And well, Hans Zimmer did some voice acting on one of my brick films.
Yeah. I can't imagine, asking and trying to follow up and, trying to say like, oh, any chance I could get that? Because I feel sheepish about doing that with just other brick filmers, saying, hey, do you want to do a voice in my new brick film?
But that's part for me is I'm very grateful for all those. The last years, after copyright, there were many opportunities. I met Hans Zimmer. I met his team. I was allowed to make videos for these guys. I'm doing stop motion animation. I'm not doing that for a living, but still I'm doing some paid projects. So some projects I'm actually doing stop motion for as a professional animator, let's say, and I'm so grateful I have all those opportunities. And of course, having Hans Zimmer doing some voice acting and sometimes talking with him, because actually now we have some shared memories. So sometimes, not that often, but sometimes we share a few messages on the internet. Mm-hmm. So it's these are great times.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like
very unexpected.
Yeah, like it is really funny. Like you never like know what a big brick film project like copyright will lead to, and like I really doubt that you ever like anticipated all the stuff that came after it.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I made that film hoping that maybe it could bring opportunities, but not doing the movie for that. Just trying to do the best film possible. Just making the movie I would have loved to watch, trying to do something good, and just hoping that maybe after that some things would happen, and many things happened. So it's Thank you, copyright.
Uh, I suppose one thing that we usually ask is, how did you find brick filming first, or like how did you decide to start making films with Lego, or were there any brick films that you saw that inspired you to start brick filming?
I wanted to do stop motion animation for all my teenage years, but I remember trying to do some claymation, and I was not happy because I didn't have that thing, for building characters made of clay. I was not good at that, and that was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell stories, and Lego figures were a great way of doing that because I could actually build my own sets and have characters already. You just have to try the right face and the right body for your character, and you actually can build a story with original characters, even if they are in Lego. And when I was a student, I wrote that story that eventually happened to be the story for The New Neighbor. I had to write a story for a communication class. We had to create like creating a graphic novel, but you're not drawing, you're not doing sketches, you're actually taking pictures. So I decided to, instead of taking pictures of friends and adding the text, on the pictures, I thought, okay, let's take pictures of Lego figures, and I made a story, and it's basically the story that eventually ended up in The New Neighbor. So I used that story as my starting point in stop motion. And back in the days, I didn't know that brick films were called brick films. So in the beginning, I was looking like Lego animation on Google, and in 2007, it was not like today. If you type Lego animation, you have YouTube and everything. You have like 10 million links. There were just a few links, and I didn't know that they were called brick films. And when I finally ended up finding brickfilms.com, I had already started doing my own short film. So I remember I found a very interesting walk cycle tutorial.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to have that because I was a bit lost in the beginning. My animation was pretty clumsy when I started. So I discovered that, and I thought, okay, so there's a community and there are other brick films. And I think The Artist by Mirko Horstmann, Der Künstler in German, it's a German short film, was one of the first short films that I thought was very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly a lot of the films from Germany, the ones created for Steinerei, were often more sort of more artistic, I guess.
Yeah.
Even back then.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there were more storytellings. Maybe there were a few video clips. I also discovered at that moment the Magic Portal, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, Der Künstler was I liked the way he was filming his characters. He was directed like a real short film, like, okay, how can I film characters like real actors? That was my point doing The New Neighbor, and Mirko Horstmann answered that question in some ways, and it was an inspiration for The New Neighbor, definitely.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me that you mentioned the walk cycle.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the starting points, because when I started animation, I had absolutely no clue what to do with the, now we talk about easing in and out each movement and things like that. But when I started, I had no clue of what I was doing because there were no tutorial. So yeah, having a walk cycle and a few tips was very interesting, very, very interesting. And I'm glad I found that at that moment. Apparently you remember that. So it's it was not a turning point, but it was something very important for many of us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Yeah, I would have found brickfilms.com probably around the same time as you did.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's funny, like nowadays, there's a lot of things that people take for granted. Like people know about, the easing in and easing out, or the walk cycle. It's just, so ubiquitous nowadays.
Yeah.
But back then, certainly.
Yeah, I think it's easier because both the cameras and everything, the software has evolved so much. Because when I started, I had no software. I had no still camera. I had a video camera that was recording stills, and after each animation session, I had to remove the SD card from the camera, and I had to go downstairs to put that SD camera to the computer and to import all my pictures into my editing software in order to make sure that the animation had no flaws, that they was actually working with the editing and everything. So the process was it was very, very long, and of course there were moments where I felt quite alone, because as you mentioned, we had no real help, unless you could actually find brickfilms.com, and that they had made some, they could actually give the right tips for what you were doing, and how do you use lights in a small Lego set, and so many questions, like how do you camera movement?
Mm-hmm.
There's no camera movement in the new neighbor, because I had absolutely no clue how to use my very big video camera. How can you build something where you can put your video camera, and it was very big, so that you can actually film your characters, but at the same time how what kind of movement you have to give to the camera, because you have to move not too fast, not too slow. So many questions. Now, just type that on YouTube, camera movements, Lego animation, brick film.
Exactly,
there's probably someone who has already answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of take it for granted, just like how much like easier, I guess, we have it now, really, compared to like just not long ago, really, The amount that I kind of like rely on just like, I just go on to YouTube and I'll find exactly what I'm looking for, and like, that's like something that we've just like never had ever, before, like at all, ever,
But at the same time, it can be some kind of an enemy, because that means that every time you want to make your character walk on screen, that means that millions of other people with the camera will do exactly the same, and if you want to find your own way of doing things, it will be pretty difficult. I remember in a project 2 or 3 years ago, it was a Lego exhibition in Versailles in France, and I had a character that had to run very fast in the streets, and I thought, okay, my regular run cycle is, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. It's not as good. I have to find another one, and I actually noticed that for all those years, I was using someone else's run cycle, from some videos on YouTube or from brickfilm.com. So I decided to try to find something else, and I remember I was very happy because there's one guy in one of the comments on that video who told me, "Wow, nice run cycle." Yes, so someone noticed it. So I was very, very, very happy with that run cycle.
That's always great when somebody comments on the thing you hope they notice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like that's something that I found with like my most recent brick film that I did, Track or Tracks. Like there was very specific things, creative choices and stuff like I'd had in mind, and like you never like you can never go into it anticipating that like someone's gonna like point out that specific thing. You do it, primarily for yourself, but like it's an amazing feeling when like someone does notice that specific thing, like a sort of edit or like animation, something that you did, and it's like, oh nice, it's a really nice feeling, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely, and it reminds me. I have some kind of a theory about that, and especially about comedy. In my films, I'm always, I'm trying to have jokes that will make a wide audience laugh, but there are also some jokes that are more private, or some jokes that are more like, okay, maybe a mainstream audience will not necessarily understand it, but some people will actually laugh. And in French, I call that the joke, la blague qui va faire rire le mec du fond, the joke that will make laugh the guy at the back of the at the back of the theater. That's a theory, because with the new neighbor, I remember there was a joke at some point, I don't remember which one, and the audience didn't react to it, but one guy from very, very far in the theater, I just heard a guy like like actually that guy, he how do you say, he chuckled, and I was so happy. And now I'm always putting a few jokes like this one, because they make me laugh, and I think, okay, if that guy at the back of the theater actually chuckles when listening to it, I'm very happy.
Yeah, I agree. I love those jokes. Yeah, one person will get, and they'll absolutely love it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think sometimes you just like put in a joke or two just for yourself, even if you're like the only person that finds it funny as well.
Yeah.
But actually, I wanted to ask about the lighting setup for Four Studs, because the lighting looks really nice and sort of soft and natural, and the moonlight, there's blue highlights on everything, the light coming in the windows and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It looks fantastic. It looks like the kind of lighting I'd like to make. But there's something about it. I can't even really explain what it is, but it just looks, especially like when Edmond is walking around at first, and there's like light coming in the window, and it's just a backlight on him, and the highlights just look so sharp and nice. So I wonder what lights are you using for the film?
Well, I'm mostly using small desk lamps, and I'm usually adding some blue filters to them. So they are not very strong lights, so I have a rather long exposure for those frames. I'm usually around 1 second or 1 to 2 seconds of exposure time. And well, these are the same lights I was already using for copyright. I bought those lights for this film, and maybe I added a few new ones, but they are from Swedish IKEA products, and these are small desk lamps that you can actually move rather freely and put them the way you want. And I've bought small ND filters, so that I can put them on my lamps, so I can have different intensities, because unfortunately those lamps have only one intensity. But so I'm putting ND filters on these, so I can adjust the light from each lamp. And it's a bit when working on Plastic Love, I'm working with director of photography Lilian Ginet. He's been a regular collaborator, and mostly on the Henri and Edmond films. He's always been there. He was doing the voice for Vladimir, the bad guy from The New Neighbor. He was doing the voice from Dominique Variance, one of the bad guys from Copyright, and he's doing more voices in the latest installments. But he's also the director of photography, not from all the movie, but he's coming from the south of France, and I'm living in the east of France. So sometimes when he's coming to the east of France, he's just giving me some help on what I'm doing, and he gives me some advice, because he's a professional director of photography. So he told me during Plastic Love, the night isn't blue, so when you're doing night sequences, you don't necessarily have to make them bluish. And in my mind, I wanted, I really wanted them to be blue, to be bluish. So with Plastic Love, we made night sequences that are not that bluish, But for Foster's, I said, no, okay, for this one, I want my night to be blue. Maybe for the next film, it will be green, or I don't know. I don't want it to be realistic.
Yeah.
Let's go with full blue light for the lighting. And actually, Lilian, when he watched the film, he told me, oh, the lights are quite good. So I said, okay, so he didn't tell me, oh, your night is bluish, that's strange. So, no, it was actually pretty happy with the final result, but it didn't work on 4 studs. So I think I wanted to prove myself that I could actually lit completely one of my films.
Oh, it looks great. I thought the lighting was really stood out in 4 studs.
I was quite happy with how the light looked like at the end, but I was not too sure in the beginning, because when you're doing light like this, especially in stop motion, where if you want to move your set, you have to move the light at the same time, and sometimes the light from one shot to the other doesn't exactly match the shadows and everything. So it's a bit tricky to have something that works properly, but I think it works rather well with 4 studs.
Yeah, I really love the shot early on where they're in the kitchen. And, you have the blue outside, but then you have the yellow artificial lights.
Yellow, orange, from the
inside.
inside, exactly.
Looks really
I'm
nice.
happy that you noticed it.
Yeah. But I guess I probably assumed that you were using some high-powered professional lighting equipment, so I guess I'm surprised that it's just desk lamps like we all use.
Yeah, the only professional equipment I'm using is mostly for daylight and outdoor sequences, because I have like a big LED panel and another like a small projector for like very sunny days. I used it for the short film French Wines. It mimics the sunlight, and it's pretty interesting, but I think I didn't use it in 4 studs.
Yeah, because it's nighttime.
Yeah, exactly. It's mostly nighttime, and the final sequence that is daytime is just light from the outside. So I'm using the desk lamps, and I think even the zombie movie that Henri is watching, the Afternoon of the Dead movie, was done with the desk lamps.
Yeah, it's really interesting though. Like, I think it just goes to show that, like, largely when it comes to like the resources and sort of equipment that you use, it's largely just like how you use it. Because I think you kind of just assume with something like with the quality and sort of production value, something like Henri and Edmund, you just assume it's like some big like sort of studio type lighting, or whatever, and it's but no, yeah, like it really, the effect of like that lighting, it I guess it's like, yeah, one of the standout things. Like I really did feel like that like the cinematography and everything, like the lighting was just like really on point with 4 studs.
The light is something. I think that's one of the most difficult parts when I'm working on those films, and especially 4 studs. I think I probably spend as much time on lighting that I'm spending on animation.
Yeah,
maybe almost.
Absolutely.
Because each shot needs a very long time to set up properly, and first with each movie you're learning. There's a learning curve that comes with each film, and sometimes during the production of one film, your learning curve is, you're progressing, you're getting better while you're doing. So there are sequences that are not as good as other ones when we are talking about lights, and I think it's also about what you have in mind in the beginning. I had this idea of a blue night sequences for 4 studs. I imagined it that way, and I remember watching Plastic Love in order to watch how the light was done for that short film, but I was not. I was happy with the result when I was doing Plastic Love, but doing 4 studs, I just wanted to do something else. So there's something about who you are when doing one film, because today I'm not exactly the same anymore, and I don't have the same ambition and the same ideas as I had 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So it's not only about the knowledge, it's also about who you are and what you want to create. So the your intention on the project also transforms what you're doing, I think.
Yeah.
And it gives a different look depending on your mood and your intention.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good to have the vision in mind beforehand, the idea of what you want to convey.
Yeah.
Something I was actually meaning to kind of like bring up, another film of yours, was Sheep, because it's another one of the, like our films that come out in like, I guess, more recent years. It's like probably one of my favourite Brick films. And
Thank you.
I guess you mentioned your inspiration from like Willis and Gromit, and something that I've always felt with Sheep is that it reminds you a lot of Shaun the Sheep. I don't know if that was at all an inspiration.
Well, it was not in the. Well, let me explain. Well, the process behind that project. In 2016, I'd say, or 15 maybe, I met a brick artist named Clou. It's his French artist name, but his real name is Jérôme. And during a Lego exhibition, I discovered his work. And among many different creations, he had done a sheep herd with many different sheep, and exactly the same as you can see in the short film. And I thought, wow, these are so cute, they are so fun. And maybe if there are different kind of faces, maybe we could create emotion with those characters, with those Lego figures, because they are not actually figures, they are bricks.
Yeah.
And I told him, do you think you could give me maybe some of those sheeps and we could actually do something together? He was very happy because he had never done stop motion and he was willing to help on that project. So he provided me with all the sheeps he could actually build. And this started that way. So from that point, we tried to find the right story. And I thought, okay, I don't know if it's the same in English, but the word sheep means many things. It's both the animal itself, but it also means people who have are always following
yeah.
the
Yeah,
trends.
it's the same in English.
Yeah.
That's the same in English. Yeah. So I thought, okay, that maybe that's not that original, but I just wanted to make a small brick film for fun, and it started that way. And Shaun the Sheep, while I absolutely love the series. And it was initiated with one of the Wallace and Gromit shorts. I tried not to watch it because I didn't want to get inspired by it. But at the same time, the visuals of sheep in fields, it's very difficult to do something very different from what's in the show. So I assumed it would look a little bit the same way. And there's a funny story about I wanted to make a sequel for Sheep, and Jérôme had made another exhibition, and he used the characters, all the sheep herd, at night getting attacked by an alien, flying saucer. And I thought, okay, that's pretty funny. So we should try to do something about that. This might be quite interesting. And like 2 or 3 months later, we discovered Shaun the Sheep 2, Farmageddon, that is about aliens coming on Earth on flying saucers and in the middle of the sheep herd. So okay, no, that's a bad idea. It's too similar already to go that way. So okay, no sequel, or maybe in the future, but we'll do something completely different.
Yeah. That's funny. And of course, I have to mention, when Sheep came out, everybody was complimenting the use of the printed eye tiles for emotion. That was great.
Yeah, I loved. I've directed recently. I've completed a short film called The Secret of Mr. Nostock, which is not stop motion. It's a friend. He created characters out of waste and rubbish, and he made a series of books, children books with those characters that are actually built with real rubbish elements, So he made those books, and we wanted to make a short film out of it. And in The Secret of Mr. Nostock, the character is not talking. Sometimes there's a narrator, there's some voiceover, but the character is not talking. And Sheep was a wonderful way of learning how to handle a character that doesn't talk, but that conveys emotion. Because Henri and Edmond are very talky, the films are dialogue heavy, and so emotion usually comes from the dialogues. And with Sheep, I had to learn how to create emotion through all the emotions on the face of the character. So it was a very good learning experience for me for upcoming projects.
Yeah, I think that's like really, writing like good characters and developing them is one thing, and then I think doing it without any dialogue is like something else entirely. And one of the things I was really impressed about with Sheep was just like how much he managed to sort of tell, I guess, visually, and the kind of like what works so well with like copyright and the Henry and Edmond series in general, kind of like it came through with Sheep as well, even without that dialogue, which was really impressive, I think.
Yeah, thank you. It was some kind of a challenge to do that project, Sheep. I think it was a bit overlooked. People were and still are expecting for more Henri and Edmond. So, every time I'm doing a new short film, I know that I will have comments.
Yeah.
And they're like, when are you doing more Henri and Edmond? So, okay, guys, I know. I just want to experiment other things sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was a great challenge, and I learned a lot. And it was really helpful for especially the Secret of Mr. Nostock.
Yeah, I get the same comments about my own series.
Yeah. Basically, people, if you make a good series, people, they want to see more of it. So I can't blame people for that. Yeah. I'm pretty happy. I'm quite honored that.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
It's nice to know that people they care about the series and want to see more. Yeah.
For me, it's kind of funny because I have like it's both like my series that I do, at Man, but then also when it's not that, it's the podcast. It's like I get both of that those sort of questions like when's the next, one coming out.
Yeah, and it's great, and at the same time, it always creates frustration for the audience, because if you want to try something else, people will feel a little bit cheated, like, oh, you're doing a new animation. Well, it's not your usual series, So I'm a bit unhappy with that, and it's people sometimes I feel people get it feels like they are cheated, So I feel always a little bit bad, but at the same time, we're not getting paid for that, so we just want to do what we want to do.
Yeah. It does always that kind of thing always reminds me of Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes books, and whenever he'd he'd always want to do something like other stories like science fiction and things like that, but like everybody wanted more Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, definitely.
But I guess we should maybe head over to the Brickfilm Showcase.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you new to the podcast, the Brickfilm Showcase is an opportunity for each of us to talk about brick films that either mean a lot to us or that we want to talk about in general. I guess we'll start off with my pick. So I picked, now I might butcher this, but it's Chef d'oeuvre.
Yeah, actually, it's a bit easier. It's chef-d'oeuvre.
Chef-d'oeuvre. Ah.
Yeah, actually, it's a bit strange. It's one of those rare words in French where the pronunciation is changed, because chef-d'oeuvre, it's a masterpiece. Chef-d'oeuvre. That's the translation. Well, the movie is very good as well. But the meaning is masterpiece.
That's actually really interesting, though. Actually, I didn't know that. but no, I guess with the film. Funny enough, I think I came across it on Vimeo like a few years ago. I don't know why to Vimeo, but maybe I was like uploading something, and I just like, oh, there's a brick film, and see, I knew Bruno Leiva, yeah.
Yeah, but that's another example of strange word pronunciation. You don't pronounce all the letters in his name. It's Bruno Lefebvre.
Ah, right, okay. But yeah, no, I obviously I knew his work before, but like it was yeah. So I came across this a few years ago, and ever since I've always like remembered it as being a really sort of a fun film, and I guess in a way it kind of reminds me a bit of Henry and Edmund in terms of like the kind of like comedic side of it. The whole like him sneaking around, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like the sequence in the fire station. But no, it's a lot of fun. Probably one of my favorite kind of examples of some sort of like like a heist sort of brick film, and it's a really well put together film and really
it is very well put together. I really like how he's made the sort of very clean looking museum. The set design, and it's all sort of symmetrical or geometrical. But especially always have to point out the ceiling with the lights in it. That looks great.
Yeah, and that's a good example of a well-written, very short film, because it's difficult when you have such a short project to have a story that works and that is not frustrating, by the end of the story, because you actually have a good laugh, and at the same time the animation serves the meaning of the story. So it's simple, it's well done, it's well written, it's the kind of short film that is very, very enjoyable.
Yeah.
And Bruno has been doing very, very good short films. I haven't seen anything new for a long time from him, but maybe I'm a bit off. I haven't followed that much recent brick films, but I think he did a lot of great brick films, and he was a very active brick filmer in the French community. So yeah, this one was one of his greatest projects.
Yeah, he did some really great stuff without dialogue. Or this one has one line of dialogue, but yeah, mostly it's all based on the visuals.
Yeah.
And you're right, he hasn't released anything in a while, although I think he did have a very short clip in Quarantine Days by Mind Game. I think you had something in Quarantine Days as well, so you might remember.
Yeah, I actually had a sequence that was that I made for Four Studs, and Zach asked me if I could provide him with something, and I told him, okay, so I've done something for Four Studs for the next for my next film, but you can actually use it. It's the soft porn movie that Henri watches on TV, and I send him, and he actually used it.
Yeah.
But Bruno maybe he had something in that series. I don't remember exactly, but I've met Bruno. He's a very, very nice guy as well, and I remember we went to the same Lego exhibition many years ago. It was like 5 or 6 years ago. It was absolutely great, and the last time I've seen him, I'm not sure, but we worked on a collaborative brick film he had written, and he that Lego exhibition Fadabric in France that is just almost next to my door. It's like very close to where I live. There was many French brick filmers that gathered there a few years ago, and we all worked on the same short film. It was very, very interesting project, and it was all written, and all the pre-production was done by Bruno, and it was absolutely great. The very, very good experience and very nice memories working with him. The French name was Hallucination Alimentaire, but it's about a guy who is eating a strange food, and he actually sees what's happening. He sees the humans and everything for like a short bad trip.
Yeah, and he sees the sheep as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, actually, I guess talking about like horse and grommet and stuff, I think one of the reasons why I think this appeals to me a lot is just that I think it reminds me a lot of the sort of high sequence in The Long Trousers.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's interesting because Bruno has his own way of animating. First, I think is working at I think it's like he's animating like 24 frames per second or something like that. It looks extremely smooth, and he has a way of handling animation that is, you know, he has a very unique style when working, and yeah, that's funny because when I watched it again, when you submitted that pick, I immediately noticed, you know, the small details that make a Bruno Lefebvre short film. You know, you notice it is animation style immediately, and it's interesting that you know, some people you know they animated a sequence because they have a very strong identity.
I was particularly impressed by the part where the character's he's standing on his head and kicking his legs around in the air.
Yeah.
Really, really subtle.
Very subtle, very smooth. Yeah.
Yeah, the way he throws his weight around looks fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
But perhaps I should talk about the film that I picked. So I decided to pick Gaston's Odyssey by France and Alex, which is a film that I've always loved, and I've always wanted to pick it as a showcase brick film on a podcast. But because it's 25 minutes long, I kind of thought, oh, you know, I don't want to make a podcast guest have to watch a 25-minute brick film. But then, because you did a voice in the remastered edition, so I thought, okay, perhaps it's acceptable that I ask you to talk about this film since you're in it now.
Yeah, well, it's a short film I really appreciate because I like the adventure quality of that short film. You know, that's when I started doing stop motion, what I wanted to do is to create a small world, and when I discovered France and Alex short film, that's what they actually created. And you know, the character is traveling. He goes on the sea, and he goes into a cave and everything. I thought it was very, very well done, very interesting. I don't know if the first version of the film is still online or not, because I think they had some copyright problems because they used music from some, you know, copyright protected music.
Yeah.
And because I liked the choices they made initially.
I did as well, yeah.
Yeah, and I think France and Alex are first they are very close friends. I mean, I see them very, very often, and we always love to talk about brick films, and I'm sure they will be very happy that we actually talk about one of their films. Gaston is, well, I noticed that you because I'm French, it seems you decided to pick a lot of French brick films. So it's great because these are films made by friends, so I feel closer to those films. But in the beginning, I think I discovered their work through this brick film, because on brickfilms.com they were picking the best brick films of the year back in the days, and I remember they were nominated as well, and that was a great opportunity to discover new brick films. At the time, I didn't know that many brick films, and this one was a great discovery. And it's funny because I talked with them, and the story was not, you know, that's the kind of short film where the story is written at the same time they are shooting. They have some idea of where they want to go with the story, but they actually write during the animation process, and I think it works in a very clever way, and you never know where it's going.
Yeah.
Because the character and the adventure itself is everything is unexpected in that story, and that's a quality, something I really appreciate. The process made the project very unexpected, and the story is going just, well, you can't know where it's going.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, it certainly really does have a great adventurous vibe to it. And it really crafts this world, and it's so distinct, like between the set design and everything that happens, you know, it's really unlike any other brick film. And especially because the characters are like centaurs.
Yeah, that's something that I really appreciated about the film. And this is actually the first time I've ever seen it. But I really loved how like the how unique the set design was, and that's something that stood out to me quite a lot. And I really love how like how it sets up that it's the world of centaurs, where it's like you have a dream and it's like he's asking like, where are your legs? It's like a weird kind of thing, and it's like for like the first like minute or so they're sort of blocking his like legs, so you kind of just you don't really notice anything, and then suddenly he walks out and you see that this is like a world of centaurs. And I thought that was a really clever way of setting it up.
I just love that sequence, near the start of the film when it's just visually showing the centaurs in the town, and there's so many gags based on them having extra legs.
Yeah.
And all the set design, just building up the world.
This guy is like sort of like his back legs are like sitting down. He's like towing this like box, and he's like on wheels and stuff.
Yeah, and what I like with the centaurs, it's there's a childlike quality to it, because we when I was talking about originality in animation, I think it's what they did here is it's very original about the way they create characters, because when you're a kid you don't mind if your characters has 10 Lego bricks between his legs and his torso. It can be as tall as a building, and it's you can do it because Lego allows you to do it. And when you grow up, you forget all that, and a minifigure is built to you have to build it that way. And I think it's interesting because they build those characters like children would build them, and it's all the magic of that project, because that's the story a child could imagine playing with his Lego figures, and actually they brought that to life, and that just makes it a bit magic.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this film just has some magic to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And I really hope that people will discover it through this podcast and watch it, because I feel like I don't see it mentioned very often by other people.
No, of course, and I think France and Alex deserve more viewings, because they are doing very, very nice brick films. I'm especially thinking about Bestia, which is one of their best, if not their best, and I think it got some fame when it was released, but I don't know if new audiences now know about France and Alex brick films, and I really recommend them to watch Bestia and of course the Gaston's Odyssey.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Bestia is fantastic. Yeah, they're the real hidden gems, I'd say. Like when you discover their work and it's just unlike what anyone else is making.
Yeah.
Even going back years, back to the stuff they were making in 2005.
They started very early. I think they were really part of the very first modern era, not like the Magic Portal, who was like another time, another world.
Yeah.
But from the internet times, I think they were some of the very first to produce quality brick films with a lot of dedication and actually pretty lengthy short films.
That's true, yeah. 10 minutes or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
A lot longer than what everyone else is making. But I guess the length might kind of scare people away initially. Oftentimes it's hard to click on a 20-minute long brick film, and if you don't know if you're going to like it. But yeah, I definitely recommend all of these, and Bestia as well.
Yeah, don't be afraid of the 20 minutes long short films. Yeah. Go watch them.
I do think though, like with Gaston's Odyssey, I guess it's another one of those kind of examples of, you're talking about like how they set up a lot about the world and have all those gags and like in the start. And I think that kind of, again, it's another one of those examples of like how that longer runtime, it allows you to do so much more with like world building and characters that you just don't really generally kind of think is possible or even kind of like consider with Brickfilms, and I think that's again is another a really great example of that. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And it also proves that compared to some of today's brick films that are beautifully animated and that are a bit crazy when it comes to the visuals, animation, everything. Gaston's Odyssey is a modest production, and animation is simple and everything, but still the project is very worthy. It's a beautiful short film, and you don't necessarily need to be the best animator in the world, and you don't need to be the best director of photography, and you don't need big explosions and action sequences to make a good project. And it proves you can do wonderful things just with dedication, and if you spend if you love what you do, you can actually do very, very good things, even if you're not the best animator in the world.
Yeah, there's just so many fun ideas packed into the film.
Yeah, completely.
But I guess we should maybe move on to your pick, Maxime.
Yeah, okay. So my pick is, we mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's The Artist by Mirko Horstman. It's called in German Der Künstler, which means the artist. And it's one of the very first brick films I discovered in 2007, 2008. And I know it's one of those brick films that it's not very long. It's a set, I think it's in the museum. It's very beautifully done. The story and the characters are, the main character is charming, is trying to create the appropriate art, his appropriate masterpiece, and I think it's when you think it was done in the mid 2000s. I like that it's already done very professionally when you think about camera works, and I think that's one of my favorites from my beginnings, and I think Mirko Horstman is another brick filmer that deserves some attention, because his films are absolutely great.
Yeah, I was going to say similarly. Yeah, he's got very little views on his YouTube uploads. Those of us, if the people who were around at the time knew these films, like you were mentioning, Gaston's Odyssey was nominated for Best Film back then within the community. But yeah, it feels like people don't know these ones anymore. And yeah, they're totally worth watching. This and Remake by Mirko.
Yeah, like this and Remake, I've always kind of considered real classics and, like must-watch brick films. And I it is funny, I never really even consider like how like low the views are in them, because they just feel like...
Yeah, they feel like classics, like that everyone's seen.
Yeah, like it just feels like that everyone must have seen them, like... And I've always really loved just how charming this film is. It's so kind of like... It's just such a nice film, I think. Like with, again, I guess with the Remake as well, there's just such a nice, it's just such a charming kind of quality that it's just really likable, I think.
Yeah, and the story is simple, but it's well done. It's well made, and I think there's something that is very interesting, and that's the first memory I have of that film. It's at some point there's a crowd and people applauding, and actually because they are Lego figures, they can't applaud because they cannot move their arms. They can only move their arms in front of them, but they cannot reach their hands. So they can't clap, they can't applaud, and actually there's the sound of people applauding, and it's very funny, and I think it's a great lesson. You can actually make the audience believe there's an action on screen when actually it's not happening because of the Lego, and actually the characters, they are always smiley, but still there is emotion, and you understand they are not happy or they are sad. And I think when it's all about body, the way they walk and everything, I think you can learn a lot about how to handle a brick film watching Der Künstler.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting short film, and definitely one of my favorites.
It seems to me to go back to something we were talking about earlier in that, like, yeah, it's a good story and it has emotion, but it does lean into being a Lego film just enough. It does seem to know that it is kind of funny to have the Lego characters and they're always smiling, and yeah, like especially the part where the hand comes in to produce the light bulb.
Yeah.
It's just playing with the medium enough that it sells the real story.
Yeah, I think there is that kind of charm of it. Of like, I guess in a way, it's like it's not apologizing for being a brick film. I think that the whole like thing at the end, is the brick. It's quite sort of, I guess, self-referential. I guess in a way, it kind of knows it's a brick film and it's okay about it. Yeah.
You asked me about my inspiration when writing and how to create my short films. I think this short film is one of my main inspiration, not story-wise, but about the way you can handle that, about the characters, the way they move, that makes you understand their state of mind. And I think there's a lot in that film that inspired me for my films, and especially in 2008 with The New Neighbor, because when you start doing brick films, you're always wondering, okay, my character is always smiley, but I'd like to convey fear or sadness with my characters. Does it work if my character keeps a smile on his face? Will the audience understand that actually the character is frightened or not, or that he is sad or not? So this movie answers to that question.
That's great to hear. I love to hear when something that people might think is a sort of forgotten film, but I like to hear that it had major influence.
Absolutely,
that's always nice to know.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like just the same as France and Alex, I feel like it's it's a filmography there that's really worth people's time and watching, get some attention for it. And I'm always, I think with Mirko Holtzman, I'm always kind of like any excuse to kind of like get people to watch him. I'm like,
And of course we have to point out that the guy's house is crooked, which is just really funny looking. I love that.
I think he didn't bother to make the incredible sets, giant sets, and everything. What he built was just what he needed, and it works. And sometimes, with small sets, but with thoughts that went into those sets prior the creation, is enough, because you can't you can't always have all the bricks you need and all the small Lego pieces that for an incredible wall or an incredible room, but that's simple and it works, and that's all that counts.
Whilst being simple, I think he manages to just make it feel lived in, and I think that's really important. I think. And like looking at like his garden, and it's all like it's a bit of it's quite a mess. And then when you're looking like inside the house, there's lots of like things going on there, paint and posters like peeling off. And even if it's simple, there's an attention to detail, making it feel as though it's like a real world that someone lives in. And sometimes you don't really need like some massive set to really convey that.
And I like how the inside of the art gallery is just a white expanse, because that's all it needs to be. And then of course the very basic exhibitions stand out against it.
And I like the fact that it's making fun of the world of the art and museum, when sometimes you're trying to think outside the box, and people they don't get what you're trying to do, and so you have to go back into the box so that people actually understand what you're trying to do, and there's a way of thinking outside the box, but the final result, being clever, is doing something that works very well into the box, you know. So and I like the way it makes fun of art and creation. It's very interesting. I think that's it's clever. It's not only about, well, there's an attention to detail, but also there's a pretty clever message behind it, and yeah, for me it stands the test of time.
Yeah. And at the end, of course, the artist prefers the stuff that he liked better, that wasn't as popular, which is, you know, similar to what we were discussing, that kind of concept earlier.
Exactly, that's not as popular, but it comes from his heart, so he feels close to it. So it's absolutely beautiful story.
Yeah, I think there's just so much to it, I think, and even, you know, like no dialogue, and I think it's quite a complex message that, for like no dialogue, and also for it to be told in such a clear way that's really easy to understand. I think it's quite pretty impressive, I think.
Yeah, I think even kids watching it, they will laugh at the end of it, you know, like, okay, just made a brick, so that's funny, but actually that's a bit deeper than that. So there are different layers, you know, to the story, which that's absolutely beautiful.
I think it kind of reminds me of like an old, like, I think it's like a saying, isn't it? I think of like, you make one thing for them and you make one thing for yourself, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So I like that. And also I really like you mentioning like the white expanse of the gallery, but then there's like the warmth of his house. Like there's like that contrast that I really like as well.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you're right. The gallery, even the outside of the gallery, is really cold, like color temperature. But then, yeah, his house is warm yellow. Yeah, I imagine that was all intentional.
Yeah, I feel like with I did notice that, like, around his house and everything, and it felt very kind of like, you know, how the look of like Mirko Holtzman, and then you've got like that white expanse, and it feels very different from that, and I thought that was quite funny. Yeah, I guess bringing his own character there a little bit. I guess looking into it even more, when the light bulb comes in, you get the warm light.
Yeah,
you know, it's like it's cold again. He's walking down the street, the light bulb comes on, and there's a warm light.
But yeah, Mirko is definitely the type to make a lot of thought goes into even a film as short as this.
Yeah, I like that we've probably talked about the shortest film,
the longest,
longer than like yeah.
And I remember I had a lot of admiration for that short film, because when I started doing animation, something that was very interesting for me was trying to create. How can I explain that? You know, basically Lego figures. They are standing still. They don't walk, they don't talk, they don't have their own life. But for me, when I started, I had a fascination for the idea of creating an atmosphere with many characters. You know, like there's not just one character in front of the camera, but actually you could have sequences where there are, let's say, crowds, you know, many people. And the fact that the museum has all those characters, especially like near the end, when everybody is there applauding his work, cheering his work, was very interesting for me, because there is life on screen, and it's not just one character moving around. It's many people living in that story, and you can imagine they all have their own little life in the story, and I was kind of fascinated by the idea of having many characters having their own life in the story.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, and that is something from my own experience. Like, I used to be very bad for, you know, taking any opportunity I could get to have the characters not move.
Yeah.
But then later on, eventually, I'm thinking to myself, you know, if there was a shot where a character doesn't have to do much, I still want to get some movement, some life into the shot. So I come up with something for the character to be doing, you know, just turning their head to look at something, you know.
Yeah.
I want the characters to feel alive. So even if they don't actually need to move, I try and find some excuse to have them just put a little bit of life into every shot.
Well, you kind of want to give off the illusion that there's always something going on beyond like our frame of what we see, you know, and that's like the world outside of that. And sometimes just those little details can be like some of the most important things, you know.
I like the idea that each character, even if it's a smaller part of the story, you know, actually it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think it's a bit the same for me. You know, that character doesn't need to move, but maybe I can decide to make him do something, because in the story each character has its own story.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I like that, and I think it started with that project, with that short film, all those characters, and you know, the cars in the street and everything that is moving around is interesting, because it creates a little world. It's not the story. There's something around the story itself, and it makes it more alive.
I think it's like one of the things that I often think about when I'm trying to do something. There's like, if you're trying to give off the illusion that they're like in some like really big city with like a big population or something, not just, you know, like having like crowds of people like doing all sorts of different things, you know, like maybe there's a door or something, and they knock on the door and they go in, or, you know, like there's something like going on there, and there's like all these things going on, these different stories. I don't know. You know, in amongst all the main, you know, sort of story of, I think, you know, just having like, I don't know, I think it can be hard to, it takes a lot of effort to kind of like give her the illusion that there's like life outside of what you're doing, but I think it can be really effective, I think.
I think that's part of the subconscious part when you're doing a film, is that you're having some attention to some details, and you're not sure that the viewers, the audience, will actually understand it or see it. But I think from a subconscious point of view, there's quality from all those small details, and it makes the world more alive, and it makes the movie better.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, even if they don't consciously notice everything, even if they don't comment on every little detail, it's all working on them. Yeah, as one cohesive whole.
And for the same reason, you know, you sometimes you can bring very small sets in the background of your film. You can have very simple, you know, like very small houses or small mountains in the background, because it will be blurry because of the depth of field. But actually the fact that there's something in the background actually helps your film feel wider, you know, and that set looks like it expands beyond the screen, and it makes it helps create a real little world, and I think the audience, while not understanding it, they actually live in that small world. It's not only animation, it's not only the story, there's a little world around all that, and it makes the project even better.
Yeah, and I get the same feeling from, not only the Henri and Edmond films, but Gaston's Odyssey as well. The world building goes a long way.
And sometimes when you don't have time, you just make only sets inside the houses or everything, so that you don't have to care for outside life, for the outside characters. But usually when you're doing outside shots, it's interesting to have all those details, because it really brings something more to your project.
I feel like we've kind of come full circle now, so it's probably a good time to wrap things up.
Yeah,
this has been a really great conversation, actually.
Yeah, really great.
Yeah, I mean, so thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real honor to talk to you, and
thank you so much, guys. That was absolutely great, and it was cool to get back to the beginning of the adventure when I just discovered Brickfilms. So thank you for this opportunity. It was a great, absolutely great talk.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. It's been great talking with you.
Yeah, I think it kind of feels quite almost like, I guess, surreal in a way, because like, the amount of times I think on this podcast, and just like in a normal conversation, we'll bring up particularly copyright as like just so often as just like we said before, like one of the best brick films like ever made, so it's real. I can't stress like how much of an honor it is to have you on with us. So Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, and let's hope that one day maybe I could top copyright because now I'm just fighting against myself, with each film, always people comparing the new ones to copyright. So sometimes it feels like I was better 10 years ago. So I will try to find a way to create something new, and I hope that people will say, oh, okay, copyright was great, but there are other things that are great as well, and not ask, why is it so short? Thank you very much, and
Thanks.
Keep doing what you do. It's very, very important, because I think what we are doing is a work of heart, and it's great to share this heart with as many people who are willing to share it. So thank you for what you are doing.
Yeah, thank you.
That's really great to hear. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.